All right, welcome to take two of this presentation. Last time I pretty much chopped my head off, and so you couldn't really see me at all. So I think it's important to see my body language and how I'm presenting what I am presenting. This is the biggest screen I can work with, so bear with me. So anyways, my name is Eric Moore. I started off as a rep knocking doors. I was in a company that was at the time making about $3 million, and then after a couple years, and being the number one sales rep year after year, I was promoted to manager. And then I worked closely with my management and with my leadership. And then we took the company from 6 to 12 million in just a few years after that. So in about 5 years or so, I came in the company, was a rep. And then by the time I had left there, we were doing about 4 times as much as we was when I first started. And that came down to good training. That came down to learning. That came down to changing everything, blowing up the company, better processes really at the end of the day, better training, and good leadership. So without further ado, these are the topics that I'm going to be covering in this presentation. I'm going to be whipping through this in about an hour's time. I could expand on all this stuff and literally take this into a 2-day workshop. And as I'm presenting this, I would normally be involving people a lot. I'll do a couple examples of that. But anyways, moving forward. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is prospecting. And first question to kind of ask, before we sit down with the client is, hey, where are you getting your prospects from? Are you doing any ad targeted campaigns? Do you guys just door knock? Do you guys get calls in from Facebook, whatever? So the next thing is understanding the profile of the buyers so that as you're encountering them and working with them, you know what triggers them to make them buy and to make them feel solid about their purchase. So the next thing is qualifying and handling the inbounds that you get as prospects. The next is appointment setting. I do believe that's a very important skill on its own, and I'll get to the reasons why. Next is discovery as you get there and uncovering the problem and then asking the right questions and leading to a proper solution and presenting it appropriately so that you can get them to be on the same page with you and feel good about what they're doing with you. We're going to talk about some paperwork stuff. Next, we're going to talk about some intermediate and advanced stuff when it comes to actual sales and body language. And talk about means of communication, whether that be verbal or nonverbal. And then we'll talk about contracts and upselling and how you can make more money at the dinner table. Then we're going to talk about closing and objection handling if that's something that you're struggling with. I have found a lot of great ways of getting around that. If you are getting through that, I don't want to say getting around it, but like getting through it so that you can be successful and that you can close more deals and bring more money home to you and your family. Next is following up, whether they purchased or not. After that, I'm going to talk about how to be good at getting referrals and doing that tactfully. And then after that is creating reviews for your company and where to post those and making sure that your reputation online is very well managed because that's what people look for nowadays. So breaking into prospecting, I know you can read, so I'm not going to read these slides to you, but just a couple things is canvassing techniques, knowing your buyer, understanding how sales works and the dance of it in order to make them make a purchase, proper mentality, and then how to set your appointments and do that right. So I could talk about canvassing all day. I did it for quite a while. I still do it today. I love it. It's a really good high when you are successful doing it. But in this example here, I just did a circle. I call that a pocket neighborhood. Really good to go in and out of. I mean, you can make a lot of money in these type of neighborhoods. They're canvassed a lot sometimes, but also too, they're very fair people. They're usually working class people that live in there. We're talking about houses that are around 150K or, up. Nowadays, these neighborhoods are worth a lot more, but we know how that is. So anyways, I have a lot to talk about with canvassing because I did it for so long and I developed some of my own techniques. This is I call it a leapfrog technique. So let's call this area A, area B, and area C. So area A, we're going to start at around 10 a.m. and canvass until it's about 6 p.m., 7 p.m., depending on how much stamina you got. Take yourself a lunch break. And then what you're going to do is you're going to actually flip the times that you hit that same spot. So you're going to try hitting this northern part, whereas where you ended last time, you're going to start there at 10 a.m. and then move your way down. Now, this is just a small example. This is not built to size. But the key thing is that after you flip the times, the whole point of this is that people are home at different days. Decision makers are home at different points in the day. So after that, you go to area B and you flop that around as well. So then you go at 10 a.m., you start at the southern portion and you work your way north. Pretty sure that can make sense to anybody that's watching this and reading. So that's the whole thing is different decision makers are home at different points in the day. So just because you stop someplace once definitely does not mean that that is the end of your follow-up game and the end of your canvassing and prospecting in that area. So the law of averages is really important to understand. This was definitely very eye-opening for me. I learned it through Grant Cardone's training when I went through his mastery course. Anyways, so it helps you understand like how many doors that you need to hit and how well your closing ratio is as a closer. So in general, I've highlighted 7 because they say it's usually about 7 times that you're gonna have to 7 doors different doors that you're gonna hit in order to get your first yes. I wouldn't disagree with that. I'd say that's pretty solid. If you can do that, you're definitely a good closer. So you want to like know those closing ratios, and a way to do that is just take a day where you have a notepad and you got your yes, no's, and maybe later. That's what I call them, and you're going to track what you get that day. So that'll help you determine, hey, it took me 17 doors before I got a yes. I got a couple maybes and I got some no's. So by using a tracking system such as Sales Rabbit, if you've heard of that, on this diagram here, all the blue are the houses that I've dropped information at that I knocked. The red are do not try to sell here, they're already under contract with someone. Or green is when you sold. So your whole job when you're using this, and I didn't have this as a rep when I first started, so I found this to be really nice, is as you're going through, you want to get a disposition, a solid disposition out of each one of those blue ones, because those are kind of like a maybe. You don't know until you go back and follow up. So follow up is absolutely key, and I'm going to be talking a lot about how important follow up is. So my big thing is moving very efficiently and effectively in the field. So once you are moving efficiently and you're not sitting around, you're not checking your phone, you're not scrolling on social media, you're moving along quickly, and then you're moving efficiently, so you're going to get to someone, and then you have to sell effectively, like once you're there. So in order to sell effectively, you got to have a good pitch, you have to be a good closer, and you have to really know your stuff. And a lot of that's going to come with experience and asking questions and having good management and working well and closely with them. So be very intentional with your time, and I think we can all understand what that means. So know your buyers. So when you roll into an area, you're going to know the demographic that you're selling. That goes without saying. You're going to know just in general what people's priorities usually are. I've seen really junk, I've seen houses with all kinds of garbage out front of them. It's a really nice neighborhood, but their priority ain't their house. It's something else. So I might knock that door, I might not, because it's like, I don't think you care about your house, but usually I'll knock anyways, especially if I'm with a rep and I'm training them, because you never really know what's behind the door. You can get an idea, but don't always judge a book by its cover. That will hurt you in sales. So these are 4 different buyer types. So they call this this type, if you will, the dope type personality test. So you have a dove, an owl, or I know this is a peacock, but let's pretend it's a parrot, and then you have an eagle. So this is how this breaks out, and this is factual. This is factual data across the board. I am an eagle type, okay? So we're very much about, like, don't give me a pitch, like, just give me the facts. Like, why are you here, okay? We're only 3% of the population, though, okay? That's very important to understand. The next one is the parrot. So these are the folks that love to chat about it. They'll come outside. They'll talk with you about nothing that has to do with the roof or anything that you're trying to go after. Like, they just want to talk. And here's a little pro tip. If you need to get off a conversation, get to your next appointment, or you know that they're starting to eat your time, I know that everybody here understands that when somebody is talking, it is draining your energy like every second, because a good salesperson listens super intently. And what happens is your energy is getting drained by listening to them talk about their dog. And the thing I found to say, pro tip, is listen, I could talk to you all day, but I really got to get to my next appointment. And they'll always understand. They are usually very self-aware that they are a chatty person. So the next thing, that, by the way, that is 17% of the population. So good to know. So the next is the most important one, which is the dove type. It's very hard for them to make a decision. They're not good at making decisions by themselves. They usually need to consult with somebody or rely on someone in order to do that. And sometimes in the middle of the day when you're knocking on the door, that's what you're going to encounter. And that's just how it is. So that's 69% of the population, by the way. That really needs to stick into your psyche. I mean, that is extremely important. Can you figure why? That's going to be most of the people you're going to be dealing with. So there's ways to get these types to purchase. So I'll lead into that as I move forward in my slides. So the last type is the owl. And you could give them, they will ask questions usually, and sometimes they won't. You'll present information, they'll create questions as you're going. But no matter what you do, they always feel the need to like research your company, read reviews, and do all that kind of stuff. So you have to be able to sell to each type here. You have to be able to sell to them. So if they're a chatty type, you need to know what to chat about to get them to decide. If it's a dove type, I'll break into how to get them to make a decision. And then an owl type, you're going to have to give them a lot of information. You're going to have to give them your website. You're going to have to give them that pertinent info that they need to make a decision. But with the owl types, it's usually really, really hard no matter what to get them to make a decision on the spot. So that's 11% of the population. Be wary. So at the bottom, that's why I'm talking about how important follow-up is, because it really applies to those people that can't make a decision immediately. So I've discovered in my career of sales that sales is like jujitsu. It's where you're taking the other person's weight and learning how to turn it over on themselves. And I'll explain what that means. So the key thing is that when you first start off in sales, I'm sure some people can relate with me because I was a rep too. I was a baby at 1.2. Is that you're kind of the needy at that point. You're trying to pay your bills. You're trying to prove to your management you're successful. You're trying to prove to your partner that you're successful and that you can do this. You're consuming material, you're fired up, but you're still feeling kind of needy because you haven't come into your own yet. You haven't become a seasoned salesperson that knows what's at the end of every deal, right? So the key is learning one day to become the needed. So that comes with a lot of experience. So a big recommendation is that just get a lot of experience and throw yourself, I wouldn't say throw yourself into problems, but throw yourself into things you can solve so that you can get better. The more problems that you solve as a salesperson, the more rounded that you're going to be. I can literally be thrown any type of problem in the roofing world and I can solve it because I've already been there before and I've already solved it. So I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. You have a question? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, more of a comment, but yes, exactly. So understand that not every client was made for you. And I'm going to break that down in just a minute. But the key thing is we want to be closing every client that is made for us. And most of them are. Salespeople are very notorious for blaming the client. We will get to more of that and talking about that in just a minute. So sales is 80% attitude, 20% aptitude. I am going to say some stuff that's corny. Hey, take it however you will. It's a fact. And it's a fact. It's a fact. It's the truth. So watch your self-talk about how you talk about yourself, though, when it comes to being a salesperson. I've seen a lot of different types of salespeople, and the key thing is being steady and being calm. So I'll talk about more of that as I talk about mentality. So the key thing about momentum when in sales is that it's the toughest thing to create. So salespeople have many different ways. We have many different ways that we will create momentum for ourselves. So how do we do that? I think that comes down to really goal setting for yourself, goal setting for the week, sometimes goal setting for the day. I see different things work for different people, but there is one pattern I have seen that works the most is making sure you're very specific about what you're after. So making sure that what you're after, you're very, very sure about. Like I am sure that I want a yellow Ferrari 2012 by September 20th. That's a very specific car. That's a very specific time. So we'll talk more about that in another module and such. But the key thing is like you got to find ways to keep yourself with some momentum. And usually in the roofing sales industry, your pipeline keeps you moving because you have adjuster appointments. You have retail leads to sell. You have people to follow up with. There's a lot of activities that you can do as a salesperson. And the more that you can master those processes and really stay on top of your game, the better off that you're going to be. So I already talked about how we create momentum. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So understand that our brains are designed to keep us safe. What I mean by that is that going out and adventuring, if you will, and prospecting and selling is risky to our psyche. It's very risky. I mean, we're like, oh, I got to put myself out there. And Yes, we've all been there. Any type of personality type, no matter who you are, you've had to be there before. We've all been vulnerable out there, and vulnerability is the key to growth. That's how you're going to get better, and that's why I think that most people, once they get into sales and they get good at it, it's really hard for them to get out of it because they know how much they've grown and they like feel that in their heart and soul. So I know I'm getting a little woo-woo for some people. Anyways, so understand that domestication, that's where all your belief systems come from. That's where your beliefs were spawned, like whether it was from your parents and what they talked about. I mean, how many people in here thought they'd be in sales? Anyone? Right, not too many people. How many people were sold the American dream of you go to college and you get your degree and you come home to your wonderful spouse and your wonderful kids and your wonderful dog, and you have this job bringing home $100,000 a year? Anyone? Yes, most of you. That's what I was sold as well. So that is what domestication means, and you are fighting against a lot of that every single day. That is just a fact, and that's okay, because now we understand a little bit more about where our psyche comes from and how to break through that and become a stronger, more resilient salesperson. So limits have to be broken through for you to grow. So I always talk about raising your standards. It's a really, really big thing. Raise your standards on who you're dating. Raise your standards on how many sales you get per week. Raise your standards on how much you'd upsell a job. Raise your standards on how many contracts you bring home per week. That's the only way that your life is going to change, is by making yourself raise your own standards. Cool? So I always talk about make sure you limit your time on social media. It can be extremely damaging to you as a salesperson. It's very easy for us as salespeople because we really like those attaboys and that feedback from our management and our significant other, etc. That we need to watch our time on social media, and if anything, learn to use social media as a weapon to create more sales. Do any of you guys in here do that? Good. Highly recommend that. It's absolutely huge. That's how you're going to get more. That's how you can use something as a weapon to create more success for yourself. So, attract your attention that way on social media. Okay? I did not create this graphic, but the point of it is that who do you think has a bigger comfort zone? A CEO that launched his own company that had to take on a ton of risk, or a brand new salesperson? Right, it's very easy. The CEO that has taken on a lot of risk, that has done a ton of development, that has been through so much in order to make a successful business. The point of this is that the bigger that you can make your comfort zone, the better of a salesperson you can become. And I would not be the man I am today without me going outside of my comfort zone. Okay? That is absolutely huge to your success, is getting out of your comfort zone, and nothing, in my opinion, has done that better than sales. Can anybody think of a better example than that? Buying a house, that was a risk for you? Yeah. Buying a new car? Right. Sometimes those things can be, as long as you can stop yourself and say, hey, I'm going to commit to this, those can be really, really good boosting things for you. But the key thing is growth. So now we're going to talk about qualifying and handling inbounds. Does anybody have any questions so far? Cool. All right. So like I said before, coming back, we're not built for every customer that we come across, but we do want to close every client that we get in front of, which is going to be most of them that we should, we want to close every client that we can. Most of them are built for us. However, there's some out there that are just a little bit problematic that weren't built for you. So I talk about it as a cheeseburger market. This is trademarked by me. So if you do use it, make sure you send a check in the mail. So there's a McDonald's cheeseburger and a Red Robin cheeseburger, or whatever your favorite. How many burger places are there out here? 20, right? Okay. So the point I'm making is that all of these businesses, these hamburger joints, are still in business, right? Yes. Well, they're all selling cheeseburgers, but they're completely different experiences, right? So you have the 99-cent cheeseburger that you go through McDonald's, and it takes you 5-10 minutes to get through that, and then you're done with it in 5 or 10 minutes, and you're on your way. Versus the Red Robin burger, you're gonna pay 13 times as much, and you're gonna wait, 3-4 times longer, but the quality's there. So understand that there's different types of clients for different types of products. So Sometimes you're going to run into a client that all they care about is price. Well, that's not our ideal type of client. That's okay. I've told many a client that when I meet with them that, hey, I'm definitely not the cheapest roofer that you're going to purchase from, but I don't get calls on my work. I don't have people having to come out and fix stuff. Half of my job is actually going out to people's homes and fixing bad work that was done. And that kind of like opens their eyes to, maybe I should think about this a little bit more than price. Price is a myth. So the whole thing is you selling yourself and making sure that you can sell on their personality type. Does that make sense? Kind of like weaving and wrapping information together. Okay? So ask qualifying questions. Like you have to find out how much research has the client done. So, I actually try to avoid the question of, am I in competition with anyone? I do try to avoid that, but my big thing is how much research have you done on this product? Like how much do you know about roofing? Because that always gives me the edge when I'm selling. Is let me educate you on what a ridge vent system is and what it can do for you. Why do you want synthetic felt versus 15 pound? So these are really important things to know so that your client, that is my canary. Anyways, so by asking those questions, it can really be determined how you need to shape the deal up. Okay? So this is really important, I found, as I went through time, and I teach my salespeople this, is how important it is to be a good appointment setter. So what that means is you have to make it seem like the client is in control. All right? So you have to give them choice either A or B. Don't ever ask them an open question like, I'm available Tuesday through Thursday, just pick a time. Because what happens is that they're going to really feel like they have you by the balls, if you will, and that they can kind of control how things are going to go. Then they'll also subconsciously think that they can make you go down on price. All kinds of crazy things can happen when you ask open-ended questions. So by all means, like avoid that stuff, okay? So make them feel like they're in control, but always give them Tuesday at 4 or Thursday at 3. Which one works best for you, okay? So always send them info for you to sink their teeth into. Send them to your website. Let them see what you have done, reviews, stuff like that, for maybe that information gatherer or unsure type that needs to have a little bit of more information on you and your company. Okay? Always arrive 15 minutes early so you can do a little walk around and show the client that you are very punctual. That's very, very important to people. Okay? So now we're opening into discovery. Anybody questions? Anyone? Okay. So with discovery, one of the worst things I see salespeople do is they think that they're being a good salesperson by being super thorough and just throwing up a bunch of information about their company to the client. Don't do that, okay? They don't give a shit. Like, they don't care that... They usually do care about how many years you've been in business. That's one of the most common ones, but... they don't care if you were Angie's best pick of the year. I mean, some people will. I kind of let them ask those questions later on after I give them my presentation of a solution. But don't just throw out a bunch of like facts and information that they don't care about. I mean, most people don't care about a lot of stuff. They all have certain things that they care about. Then that's what you key in on by asking the right questions. So my big thing is tell me a story. I show up to a client's house. Tell me a story. And then I just listen. And they will literally tell me the answers of how to sell them inside of that one question. I just shut up. You got 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. So you have 4 means of receiving information, 1 of transmission. So just use that appropriately and you'll do really well as a salesperson. Just really good salespeople listen very intently. And that's something that I was talking about earlier. Okay? Don't repeat questions. Show the client that you're actively listening. And my big thing is writing things down. So you said that you really like the forest green shingle. You want 6 feet of ice guard. And you're really interested in a transferable warranty. Am I tracking with you? Cool. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So that way, it really confirms that you're listening to that person. That stuff has done really, really well for me and made me a lot of money. And just show them that I'm listening to you and I am trying to provide the best solution I can for you. Okay? So, how heavy are you in competition? Like, my big thing is make sure you can define what makes you different than your local competition. Like, you're going to have 1 or 2 things, whether you've been in business longer, you have more 5-star reviews on Better Business Bureau. Just be able to define what makes you better than your competition. Okay? So moving on is just understanding there's different types of questions out there as you're going along in this process. Okay, this is kind of like some intermediate stuff, but the key is a situational question. What has someone been doing right now to try to fix it? Has your neighbor been putting Flex Seal up there? A problem question like, well, so if it's leaking, like, isn't that leaking causing some internal damage and stuff like that? Well, if you don't fix that leak, then why will happen? Doesn't that make sense that you want to fix this problem at this point? So just understand there's different types of questions out there that you can ask. But I don't know. I've had, 3 or 4 slides at this point that talk about just questions and question asking. Be good at that. It's a skill. It makes things a lot better. Like I said, one of my easiest, if you can take one thing away from me today, tell me a story. That's it. Then just listen. All right. So my big thing with roofing discovery is always treating the client like they know better. Okay. I kind of do that sometimes to fluff their ego a little bit and be like, I'm pretty sure that you know about some roofing. And then sometimes they'll be like, yeah. Or sometimes they'll be like, no, I don't really know anything. Oh, I'm sorry that I assumed. I apologize. But I never, ever, ever treat the client like they're an idiot. Okay. Like, don't be that salesperson that's like, I'm not going to take them on the roof. I'm going to get up there and I'm going to just tell them how bad it is. And I'm the expert, so you better buy from me. Like, that is not the right way to do things. Okay, I'll just say that. So the thing is that, like, if they're bold, like, I'll take them onto the roof with me. Like, I'll be like, yo, come on up here. And they're like, oh, I don't want to. Or I've had plenty of them climb up with me, and I'll be like, here's what's going on. And let them actually feel and see what I'm, it makes it real to them. And the more real it is, the quicker they're going to write a real check. Okay? So say this with me. People buy from you because they feel that you are the expert and that you can be trusted. Okay? Super, super important. They got to feel like you're the expert and that you can be trusted. Make it real. Photos. Take them up there. All right? So now that you have the presentation of an issue, then you have to be good at your presentation of a solution. Right? So, after you've given them a solution, whether it's written or, well, it should always be written. So, let me just say that. You should always have a written means of a proposal. Okay? More detail, the better. And making sure that they do not have any questions is extremely important. All right? Follow up every 2 days on that client. So, now we're going to talk about exciting stuff. We're going to talk about paperwork. This is not going to take long. I'm just going to really get through this so that you can understand how I frame how I frame paperwork and how I make it better for myself so that I run into less issues down the road. So remember that there is a lot of power in your paperwork if it's done right. Okay? This is really, 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 really key. So good paperwork means less problems for you and your client and your management and your owner. So with agreements, you can explain it as a contract or not. I've had people explain it in many different ways in a service agreement scenario. But the thing is that they must know that it's enforceable if it's breached. Okay, if you take what is our money and run off with it, well, you're going to pay us 20%. This is how it's going to go. So I just had to go through this with somebody the other day, and it completely straightened everything out. But the rep couldn't explain it well, and she was tripping over herself trying to explain it, and it went all bad. So I had to take the reins and fix the situation. Say, listen, we're not sending you an estimate. This is what it is. And so if you don't want to do this, I already have a copy from the insurance carrier. So if you don't want to do this, and you're going to pay us $3,400. And that's fine. I'll take $3,400 for doing a few hours of work. There's a little rabbit hole that I went down. You can see that I've been through that scenario before, but you don't want to get to that type. You don't want to get to that kind of scenario. So the key thing is to understand that within 30 days of having you paid for, you need to go to contract. Cancellations, be very, very careful on how you explain this. So my big thing is letting them know that within 3 business days, if you decide that you don't want to work with me and my company, you can legally do so. However, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is there any reason that you could think of that you wouldn't want me to help you save 80 to 90% cost on this project? And they're always like, no, I absolutely need a roof. I need to get this done. Perfect. Okay, cool. Sign here, initial here. We're done. So a component sheet, this has like layers, pipe boots, all that stuff. I think this is really important for every rep to get good at because it helps in 3 different ways. It helps your production team when they're ordering materials. It makes sure that you got it in a properly approved scope when you receive it. And you can educate the homeowner too on things that they missed. And then the third thing is for supplements. So making sure that if you do your supplements later on, that you can go back to the insurance and have, hey, you missed 6 feet of ice guards, stuff like that. But this really, really helps educate a younger salesperson on components that they need to have on the roof. Okay. Next thing is the authorization form. It just shows that you have authority in the claim and that you are allowed to speak about the claim to the insurance company directly. Okay. So, body language. This is some of the intermediate and advanced sales training. You guys ready for this stuff? So as I'm standing up here and speaking, what kind of motions are you guys seeing out of me as far as a presenter? Yep, a lot of hand movements. Yep, I'm very open, shoulders back, absolutely. I'm okay moving around. See, these are all different little things that show you where I'm at emotionally, spiritually, even in some ways physically, on my material. So understand that no matter what, as a salesperson, understand this is super, super big. It really changed my life when somebody explained it this way, is that you are a magnet for the good and bad things happening in your life, and that includes sales as well. So if you're out there doing bad stuff, you're going to be attracting bad stuff. If you're out there doing things honestly and doing things right, you're going to be attracting good things. All right? So my big thing is showing that if you stay calm, that you're in control, and that you have the power in that scenario. Okay? So does anybody here know what peak state is? Like peak emotional state? Yes, exactly. So my peak state is when I'm like this. I'm super calm. I'm mellow. A little eccentric and excited, but at the same time, I'm in control. Very calm. I can slow down. I can control my cadence, like whatever I need to do. But the bottom line is that I'm calm. And I think that calmly selling really makes a customer feel good. If you're showing that calmness and clarity, that makes them feel good about who they're purchasing with. At the end of the day, they're purchasing confidence. They're purchasing someone they believe they can trust. Remember, you're the expert and that you can get the job done. Okay? So the big thing is being unwavering. So you're going to see clients that are going to have times where they freak out about things. I've had clients lose their mind over the smallest little things. They found a nail in the yard, even though I explained it 20 different times that's going to be a thing. Ma'am, I completely understand. Apologize that you had to go through that. If it makes it feel any better, I'm glad to come out there and do a quick inspection for you. I'm addressing it, and I'll talk more about this a little bit later too. It's like I'm addressing it, but I'm not freaking out about it. Like, oh well, I explained that you don't do that. Like, don't be that way. Don't reflect what they're trying to get you to reflect. Stay on your calm and even keel. So the thing is, like, don't be something you're not as a salesperson. That's huge as well. Master yourself and master your style. So everybody in here understands that they have a different style when it comes to getting down to the table and doing the deal, right? Yeah, we're all completely different animals, okay? So that's the thing, is that confidence is in that connection with that person. Connect with them. Use your personality style and use your strengths in order to become the best salesperson in your own way that you can, all right? So appearance, pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you're a sharp-looking salesperson. Make yourself differentiate from anybody else out there. So what does confident body language look like? Okay, the first thing to talk about is mirroring. And I have this little graphic here showing that no matter what the other person is doing, the other person is doing the same thing. If you ever are interested, look at pictures of world leaders together. If they're ever sitting at a table, they're all sitting like this. If they're ever walking, they're all walking the same way. They have their arms behind their back. You'll see that because that's them saying that they're in rapport with each other. And as a world leader, you kind of got to be a master salesman to get to the top, right? So that's a skill of some of the best salespeople in the world. Don't you think you should pay attention to that? Okay. If your client is, if your client is open and everything like that, you should be pretty open. Okay. Don't be like this. You want to be nice and open with them. That also shows your confidence. So shoulders back, stand tall, smile. Make sure you keep your eye contact. That is absolutely huge. If you're like looking around when they're asking questions, you look like shit. Okay. You better get more educated if you're messing up on any questions, or you better be able to get the answer quickly that client needs. Okay. So lean in, take notes, poke fun at things, make them speak more than you. Okay. So now we're going to talk about verbal communication as well as tonality. So when your client starts asking questions, that's one of the things that I get an absolute high from, is when they just start drilling me with questions about things. that feels really good. You know that at that point that you are in good rapport with them. They're asking you the questions. They call it taking the reins in the sales journey. The next thing is the power of acknowledgement. So that's what I was talking about before, where if a client is freaking out about something and that in your mind it's not really a big deal, but in their mind it is, just understand that they don't see things the way that you do. So you're the one that has to stop and say, ma'am, I hear you and I totally understand and I totally agree. Just even those words alone will make them feel so much better about who they're working with in you, okay? So customers sometimes will throw what are called smoke screens about things. I've had customers where they told me it was 5 different things, and I literally stopped them and said, you've told me 5 different reasons why you don't want to do this, and at this point I'm not really buying what you're trying to sell me. So either we can take care of this today, or I can just go and you can just be on with your day. So some people are just naturally going to want to be a little bit argumentative, and they're going to want to try to have this little power struggle inside where they want to show you that they're in control. It's a little psychological game that they play. That's some advanced stuff that I can talk about in another module, but I've seen people do it plenty of times. I'm just like, this person is impossible to please, and they're doing it on purpose. And they don't know that they're doing it on purpose, but subconsciously they are. But moving on. So tonality, 3 different types. Assertive. This deal is unmovable. This is what's going to happen. And in a down tone. This is what's happening. I'm going to fix it. Makes it seem like the deal is unmovable. Commentator type tonality. Yeah, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep it going, and we're going to fix it. Stay kind of like right in the middle. So sometimes I'm the owl type in some ways. So I'll end my statements at a question, and that ends in an uptone. I'm trying to tell you that this information is really pertinent and that you should really make your own decision because you're a really smart person. I think that you can make the best decision. See, I just keep ending in uptones. That's telling them that it should be analytical, that they should be thinking about this purchase. Next, I'm moving on to contracts. And I am moving through this presentation a little bit faster than normal, but as I'm trying to show, I can stretch this in any way, shape, or form for any type of presentation. So the exciting thing about contracts. So big things that I think are really important on your paperwork and contracts is having good note sections where you can really put specifics about each job, making sure that the client understands that all supplement money goes to the contractor, payment is due after each trade performed, and then we want to talk about upselling as well. So a project checklist goes along with a contract. So a project checklist helps avoid misunderstandings and creates proper expectations. There's going to be nails when the job is done. You're going to need to sign off on the sheet on any pre-existing damage that you have to your siding or your driveway or whatever. Okay, so that you don't create a problem later and the client's like, you correct my driveway. And I'll be like, no, we didn't. We signed off on it and we have photos of it. I've been there before and it is so nice to have this just in case. Okay, so cover your butt. Also, have a sign in the yard. That's really big when your company is doing a roof. You want to be doing some advertising then. But the key thing is making sure proper expectations and no BS to deal with later because nobody likes that. One of my lines that I say with clients is any phone call that you don't want to make, we don't want to get it. So we're on the same page with you about not wanting to have problems that we are running into. So something that people always get excited about is upselling. I love upselling every job, and let me show you how I do it. So if you're doing it off of a claim alone, it doesn't have to be a claim, but knowing your product and being really confident with this is key. So felt. Show them the 15-pound felt. Sell synthetic at $37 a square. Okay, you got your ridge vent system. Box vents are free. Value ridge vent system. Sell it at $17 a linear foot. Flip that estimate over. Show them that they're paying, I don't know, $5 to $12 for linear foot for a cheap aluminum ridge vent, and then sell them a better one. Okay. Then upsell their ice guard as well. So now that the client has actually purchased all these items, they now qualify for your better warranty. Okay. So you can either sell it at $250 a pop or sell it for $25 a square, whatever you want to sell it for. Split those costs with your company though and make some huge bucks. I'm really big into this, and I would make more on my upselling than I did on my actual commission percentages. So I'll do a whole workshop on this later today as well. So Have the client tell you why they want this extended warranty after making all those purchases. So they usually want it for transferability, and they like to have this nice warranty packet that they get in the mail after the job is done, just to make them feel great. So now we're going to talk about closing and objection handling. Who in here loves talking about closing? Okay. Probably because you're not that great at it, and that's totally fine. I had to close this deal in order to get in front of you today. So understand that closing is 20% of your selling time, but 100% of your money. So you better get good at it if you want to do well and make a lot of money. So the key thing is, as you're going through, you want to make sure that as you're going through with your client, that you don't stop to ask for validation. Is it okay if we sit at one of your tables to look at this stuff? Like, you're stopping to ask for validation instead of, what's the best table for us to sit down at? That's assuming that we're going to sit down and that we're going to look at this on paper and write this up. That's what assuming the sale means, okay? Not as we do your roof. I'm sorry. You say as we do your roof, not if you decide to purchase from us. That is some weak stuff, okay? That's got to be out of here. So understand they're buying you, not your product. They're really buying that calm, confident person that they know will take care of them. All right, so preemptively burn objections before you get to them. That's really big. And the way you do that is by asking questions and listening. And you'll be able to stop things ahead of time. So the big thing with closing and objection handling, I'm going to get to some closes in just a minute here. But the big thing is to find a partner and practice. Practice price is too high. Practice, I'm not really the one to make this decision. You got to practice these closes, and that's how you're going to get good. You just have to practice them. And once you hear a scenario, your brain will automatically translate over here as, oh, this is how I rebuttal that, okay? So show that you've done this 1,000 times. Remember I showed you in the beginning that 69% of people need to be guided? This is a very big part of that. So they need to be guided to making a decision. They need you. So understand that nothing of value has happened unless you close the deal. Nothing good's happened for you or the client, and that's why it's so pivotal. You have to create desire and urgency and value, and a lot of this stuff is done before you get there. And once again, ask good questions, okay? You'll get the answers. So I'm proud to tell people I'm a commission salesperson, that if I don't take care of you, then I don't eat, okay? I'm 100% commission. I don't have a salary. So, like I said, salespeople are really big for the blame game. They are very quick to say, "Oh, the client was the reason. Oh, we charge too much per square." Listen, if that's that's going to be your mentality, you're not going to do very well in sales. And at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to be miserable if you're always blaming other people. So, the more you can take accountability for yourself, the better salesperson you can become. The more money you're going to make, and you'll be so much happier. So, the whole point of me being here today is your growth, right? Can you all understand that? Excellent. So, there's just a couple cheesy lines there. Go ahead and move past that stuff. So, these are the top 7 reasons that I see people fail at closing. Number 1, you didn't really ask for the close. You just assumed that magically, as an order taker, that if you are just so good and confident and good looking, that they're just going to say, let's do this today. Doesn't happen. Persistence really is what carries through resistance. So, number 2, salespeople think that pressure is bad. Well, I don't want to pressure them. Well, you're actually helping them solve a problem. So if you don't want to be a problem solver, then you shouldn't be a salesperson. Number 3, incorrect estimation of required effort. I don't feel this one too much myself, but I see it, is that people just think that in sales that once they've had a few easy things happen, that the rest of it's supposed to happen that way. Number 4, salespeople don't have goals that are important enough to them. It's not important to them to close the deal. They just think, I'm just out here living and breathing, and so it doesn't really matter if I close this deal. Number 5, treating complaints as objections. Like, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. That's what I was talking about. People throwing smoke screens. Don't treat it as a real objection. It's not. It's just something that they're complaining about. Number 6 is having lack of closing material. I'm going to be giving you some really big closes to use, so that will no longer be a reason. And number 7, salespeople believing that the customer is a problem. It's always you. And if you can embrace that, the better you'll get, the quicker you'll get. Okay? So my top 10 rules of closing. Number 1, have your proposal in writing. Number 2, keep your eye contact, like I said before. Number 3, have closing tools prepared. Be prepared with your demo material, your pen, your paperwork. Number 4, always isolate the objection. Listen, sir, I really don't think that all this stuff that you've been saying is really like, what's the number one thing that's most important to you? Oh, you want custom flashing color on your house. By the way, this is a real example I just dealt with. Okay, this guy threw all these smoke screens, and what it was, he wanted this gray flashing on his house. Not a problem. Let me get the answer for you. Okay. Number 5, use humor in stories. Use another client's experience. I do that all the time. Listen, I know somebody that felt the same way you do, but we found this. We found this solution. All right. Number 6, ask one more time. Wear out resistance using persistence. Number 7, always look for a solution. Can do. Number 8, remain positive no matter what. No matter what they do, remain positive, remain relentless. Okay? Number 9, always smile and always acknowledge. Don't be ignorant. Don't be arrogant. Listen to what they say. Address it. I understand. I'm with you. Those two little terms or quotes, whatever you want to call them, have made me a ton of money. Just, I listen. I get it. And I'm with you. Like, that helps them see that I'm on the same playing field as them. It makes them feel really good. So number 10, my number one thing, treat everyone like a millionaire and they will buy like one. Can't tell you how many times I went with sales reps that were like, oh, they're not going to purchase. They're not going to buy your upselling. I walk out with $2,000 in upsells and my rep is like, I can't believe you just did that. And I said, you're the one that made the decision and said that they're not going to buy like a millionaire. I'm the one that treats everyone like a millionaire. And if you do, they will purchase like one, even when you don't think they have the money. I've seen them finance it. Okay. So I'm not going to read this to you. I'm actually just going to include this for you guys. These are some of my favorite closes. Each parentheses has the type that it is, like an assumptive close, an ownership close. What color were you thinking about having this done? When would you like to have this done? And you guys can check that stuff out, okay? And here's a whole other page to them, okay? So follow-up, super important. Whether they asked or not, this is really, really big. So always use the same approach. Like, use your CRM and make sure you make a call and a voicemail. Text and email. Do all 4 every time. It shows how persistent you are, and it has worked wonders for me to make sure that I do that every single time, like unrelenting. Be professionally persistent with your clients. I do think that every 2 days is good. I don't think you should blow them up every day. And that makes sure that you're a little crazy, maybe a little bit desperate. That ain't good. So, referral wrapping. So I always talk about this at the beginning, actually, of my sales presentation that, hey, I'm in a very referral-based business. I would really appreciate it if after, as long as I do a good job for you, that you'd be willing to say a few kind words and help me get some business from someone else. Is that fair to ask? They're always like, yeah, absolutely. So that's when I frame that. I tell every rep to create their own referral program. Like, if you can work with you don't depend on your management to do this, but I'll take $250 off upgrades for you when it comes time to contract, as long as we can get a referral going. That is good. What did you like most about working with me? This is kind of later in the process, but hey, what did you like most about working with me and my company? That's really big. Could you help me out with something? And that's how you get a review. And I'm going to lead to that in just a minute. Describe what a good referral program person looks like. Do you know of a single family that lives in the same neighborhood? Any friends of yours? Stuff like that. So reputation management is making sure that before you go, as you collect the final check from a client, you're getting reviews. I will actually sit there and copy and paste reviews right from that person's account, right to Google, Better Business Bureau, Yelp, all that stuff. And that's my presentation. So yeah, here's my contact info.